February 1959. 9 young hikers set out on an ambitious trek through the northern Ural mountains of Soviet Russia. Their destination was Otorten, a remote peak whose name in the indigenous Mansi language ominously translates to "don't go there." Leading the group was Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute, known for his discipline, skill, and quiet confidence. The team was composed of experienced outdoorsmen and women, students and recent graduates who had trained extensively for expeditions just like this one. They were young, capable, and prepared for the harsh Siberian winter. None of them would make it home alive. What happened on that mountain would become one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. The group consisted of 9 members in total, 7 men and 2 women. Among them were Zinaida Kolmogorova, a spirited and athletic student known for her warmth, and Lyudmila Dubinina, a headstrong economics student with a passion for the outdoors. Other members included Alexander Kolevatov, Rustam Slobin, Yuri Krivonishenko, Yuri Doroshenko, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, and Alexander Zolotaryov, the eldest at 38, a mysterious figure who joined the group at the last minute. A 10th member, Yuri Yudin, turned back early due to illness, a decision that would save his life. The group's last known photographs show them smiling, laughing, and pushing through heavy snow. They had no idea they were marching toward their deaths. On the evening of February 1st, the group set up camp on the slope of Kholat-Syakhl, a barren mountain whose Mansi name translates to Dead Mountain. It was a strange choice for experienced hikers, exposed to the brutal wind with no tree cover for shelter. Something happened that night, something so terrifying that every member of the group slashed open their tent from the inside and fled into the freezing darkness. The temperature outside was estimated at -30 degrees Celsius. Most of them weren't wearing shoes. Some didn't even have coats. Whatever drove them out of that tent was more frightening than certain death by exposure in the Siberian wilderness. That is the central mystery of Dyatlov Pass. What force could compel 9 rational people to run barefoot into a frozen abyss? When the group failed to send word by their expected return date, search parties were organized. On February 26th, searchers discovered the tent on Kholat-Syakhl, collapsed, half buried in snow, and slashed open in multiple places from the inside. The scene was deeply disturbing. Personal belongings, shoes, and warm clothing were left behind. Footprints from at least 8 or 9 people led away from the tent, heading downhill toward a tree line nearly a mile away. Some prints showed bare feet, others only socks. The tracks moved in an orderly fashion at first, then gradually spread apart. Roughly 500 meters from the tent, the footprints disappeared beneath fresh snowfall. The searchers knew immediately that something had gone terribly wrong, but nothing could have prepared them for what they would find next. The first 2 bodies were found on February 27th beneath a large cedar tree at the edge of the forest, roughly 1,500 meters from the tent. Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko were discovered wearing almost nothing, just underwear and scraps of clothing. Their hands were burned, and broken branches high up on the cedar tree showed they had desperately tried to climb it, perhaps to see something or to escape something. A small fire had been started nearby but had gone out. The scene suggested pure desperation. Between the cedar and the tent, searchers found the bodies of Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin, frozen in positions suggesting they had been trying to crawl back to the tent. Slobodin had a fractured skull, yet the cause of death for all 3 was listed as hypothermia. The remaining 4 hikers, Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, and Alexander Zolotaryov, were not found until May, after the spring thaw revealed a ravine hidden beneath 4 meters of snow, roughly 75 meters from the cedar tree. Their condition was far more disturbing than the others. Dubinina had massive chest trauma with multiple broken ribs, yet no external wounds to explain them. Her tongue and eyes were missing. Thibault-Brignol had suffered a catastrophic skull fracture. Zolotaryov had severe chest injuries consistent with being crushed by enormous force. The lead forensic examiner, Boris Vozrozhdeny, stated that the injuries were comparable to those caused by a high-speed car crash or a powerful shockwave. No human being, he said, could have inflicted this kind of damage. The Soviet investigation was led by prosecutor Lev Ivanov, who initially pursued the case aggressively. But as the evidence mounted, the investigation began to narrow, not toward answers, but toward silence. Ivanov noted that some of the hikers' clothing tested positive for radioactive contamination, a detail that was quickly suppressed. He also received reports from other hikers and military personnel in the area who claimed to have seen strange orange orbs in the sky on the night of February 1st. Ivanov wanted to investigate further, but orders came from Moscow to close the case. The final verdict, issued in May 1959, concluded only that the group had died from a spontaneous force which the hikers were unable to overcome. It was the most evasive conclusion imaginable, and it sealed the file for decades. One of the most persistent theories centers on Soviet military activity in the region. The Ural Mountains were a key testing ground during the Cold War, and multiple witnesses reported seeing parachute mines and rocket tests near the area around the time of the incident. Some researchers have pointed to evidence of military personnel arriving at the scene before the official search parties. Yuri Krivonyshenko, one of the hikers found at the cedar tree, had previously worked at the Chelyabinsk 40 nuclear facility, the site of the catastrophic Kyshtym disaster just 2 years earlier in 1957. His clothing was among the items that tested positive for radiation. Was the group caught in the path of a weapons test? Did they witness something they weren't supposed to see? The Soviet military had both the means and the motive to cover up such an incident. In 2019, the Russian government reopened the investigation, the first official re-examination in 60 years. The new inquiry was led by Andrei Kuryakov of the Sverdlovsk Region Prosecutor's Office. After reviewing the evidence, Kuryakov announced that the deaths were caused by a delayed slab avalanche, a sudden collapse of packed snow that could have struck the tent, caused the severe internal injuries, and triggered a panicked escape. The theory was presented as definitive, but many researchers were unconvinced. The slope where the tent was pitched had an incline of only 15 to 20 degrees, generally considered too shallow for avalanche conditions. No debris field was found. And no avalanche theory adequately explains why the group didn't return to the tent once the danger had passed. The official answer felt, to many, like another attempt to close the book. Some researchers have explored a more exotic explanation: infrasound. Under certain atmospheric conditions, strong winds passing over the dome-shaped peak of Kolatsiakal could generate infrasound waves, extremely low-frequency sound below the range of human hearing. Studies have shown that infrasound can cause intense feelings of dread, panic, disorientation, and even nausea. In rare cases, it has been linked to hallucinations and irrational behavior. Could the unique geography of Dead Mountain have created a natural acoustic weapon, a Kármán vortex effect generating invisible sound waves that drove the hikers into a state of uncontrollable terror? It would explain the panicked flight, the irrational decision to abandon the tent, and the group's failure to return. It would not, however, explain the crushing injuries found on 4 of the bodies. Then there is Alexander Zolotaryov, the enigma at the heart of the mystery. At 38, he was significantly older than the other hikers, most of whom were in their early 20s. He was not part of their regular group and joined the expedition at the last minute under unusual circumstances. Zolotaryov was a World War II veteran with a background that some researchers believe was linked to Soviet intelligence. Unlike the other hikers, he was found fully clothed and carrying a camera around his neck, as if he had been expecting something worth documenting. Some conspiracy theorists believe Zolotaryov was a KGB operative sent to observe or participate in a military test, and that the students were unwitting witnesses. His military records contain gaps and inconsistencies that have never been satisfactorily explained. More than 65 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains officially unsolved in any truly satisfying sense. Yuri Yudin, the man who turned back, spent the rest of his life searching for answers, tormented by guilt and grief. He passed away in 2013, still believing the Soviet military was responsible. The families of the victims never received a full accounting of what happened to their children. The case file was classified for decades, and key evidence, including Zolotaryov's camera film, has never been made public. Every theory, from avalanche to military cover-up to infrasound to something far stranger, leaves questions unanswered. Perhaps the Soviet prosecutor's original conclusion was the most honest thing ever written about this case, an unknown compelling force. Something happened on that mountain that defied explanation then and still defies it now. 9 lives were lost on that frozen mountainside, and after more than 6 decades, the full truth remains buried beneath layers of Soviet secrecy and official silence. If this investigation gave you chills and made you question the official story, hit that like button so more people can discover what happened at Dyatlov Pass. Subscribe and ring the notification bell, because our next investigation may uncover something even darker. Some mysteries don't stay buried forever.